Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Pesachim Samach Daled. We are 10 lines from the top of the Amud and going back to our Mishnah, which discussed the pasuk of Leisishchat al Chametz Dam Zivchi, telling us that one may not bring the Korban Pesach while there is Chametz still in his possession. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Af HaTamid, the same halacha applies to the Korban Tamid. Shol ben Harbayim, on Erev Pesach, the Kohen bringing the Tamid cannot have any Chametz in his possession. My time of Rabbi Yehuda, what is this reason? Amar Lacha, he says like this. Zivchi, pasuk says, Leisishchat al Chametz, Dam Zivchi. What is Zivchi alluding to? Not only the Korban Pesach, but also to something else. Zevach HaMiyuchad, this Korban which is Miyuchad, designated, which is something of a constant. Every day, over and over. Umayni utamid, what is it referring to? The tamid, and in this case, the tamid shel ben harbayim of Pesach, which cannot either be brought together with chametz. Rabbi Shimon Omer Pesach bar ba'asar v'chulu. According to Rabbi Shimon, this applies to not only the Pesach but to other korbanos as well. Yav shlomim ha'olam cannot be brought together with chametz. However, Rabbi Shimon says like this: two things. Two conditions must be met. Number one, has to be a shchita ru'iyah, a shchita kshera. Number two, on Erev Pesach, where it is the zman of the Korban Pesach, then this halacha, this isra of doing it together with chametz only applies to Korban Pesach. But all throughout Yom Tov, where it's not really the zman of Korban Pesach, then and only then does this halacha apply to other korbanos as well. My time at Rabbi Shimon, what is his reason? D'chsiv Zivchi, Zivchi. We actually have the word Zivchi repeated twice. Once in Shmois Chav Gimel, Leisizbach al Chametz Dam Zivchi, and once in Shmois Lamed Daled, Leisishchat al Chametz Dam Zivchi. Trei Zimni, we have it twice. And we apply the following drasha. Kari Bei Zevach Zivachai. Rashi explains. We take the Yud from Zivchi, we apply it to the other Zivchi, which leaves us with Zvachai. Zivchi ending with two yuds alludes to a multitude, a plural, lashon rabim, zvachai, teaching us in effect that this halacha applies not only to Korban Pesach, but to all other korbanos as well. If that's the case, why did the Torah split them? Once zivchi, again zivchi, we have a yud in either word. Why did the Torah straight away write zivachai? Lashon Rabim. Just write it once, and in Lashon Rabim. Lemeimah to teach us. We have two separate time frames. Bizmandika Zevach. When there is Zevach, meaning on Yudal Nisan, which is the time to be makriv the Zevach of the Korban Pesach, he will not have a chiv. I'm bringing chametz together with other korbanos. Bizmandika Pesach. However, when there is no Pesach, meaning all throughout the rest of Yom Tov of Pesach, then and only then will he have a chiyuv when he does this concerning other karbanos. So that's the point of splitting it into two. To tell us we have two different time zones. We have the time which is designated for Korban Pesach, Zivchi, in which case this Isra of Chametz doesn't apply to anything other than that Korban Pesach. We have the other pasuk, Zivchi, which allows us to make the drasha, to teach us that there's another point in time when indeed this halacha applies to other korbanos as well, which is anything but Yudal B'Nisan. Or b'mayed l'shmei pater, Rav Shimon says like this: only if the shchita is a shchita ru'uya, then the pasuk of leisishchat al chametz applies. But if it's a shchita psula, for instance, if it takes the Korban Pesach, which is meant to be brought when? On Erev Pesach, brings it on Yom Tov, on Chol HaMoed Pesach, lishmoi, for the sake of the Korban Pesach, then it's possible, therefore he's potter. But if it's shaloi lishmoi, he designates it as a shlom, in which case it's actually kosher. Why? Because we know that a Korban Pesach, when it's outside of its man, if it's past Yudal of Nisan, it's meant to be brought as a shlom. A Pesach is like a subcategory of the Shlomim family. So when it can't be used as a Pesach, it reverts back to a Shlomim. So again, the Mishnah says, if he brings this Korban Pesach b'moed on Yom Tov, when it's not meant to be brought as a Pesach, and he brings it as a Pesach, lishmai potter, because it's possible. So even if he brings it with chametz, it's okay. But if it's shaloi lishmai, so you had shlomim in mind, then it's a shchita ksher, because that's what it's meant to be brought as, and then if he did it with chametz, it's chay. It says, what time of the shaloi lishmai? Apparently it's only because he did shaloi lishmai, in which case he deviated. He diverted it from a Pesach to a shlomim. That's why it has the din of a shlomim, and it's kosher as a shlomim, and therefore it's chayiv by bringing it with chametz. Ha stama potter. But suppose he would just leave it alone. He wouldn't have any specific machshava in mind. Then he would be potter. Why? Because apparently this Korban Pesach, even if it's outside its man, it's on Chol Hamoed Pesach. Unless you actually change its designation, change its status, it maintains its default status, which is Korban Pesach. In which case, it's possible. Because you sheikh the Pesach shleib is mane, so he's potter. Amai, why should we say that? Why should we say that Stama is considered by default a Korban Pesach? Amai, Pesach b'shari moisa shana shlamim havi. A Pesach all throughout the year, other than Erev Pesach, is meant to be a shlamim. So automatically, it should revert to a shlamim. Why should we say that by default it's a Pesach? Shabbos, perhaps you can learn from here that it's not so simple. Pesach b'shari moisa shana boyakira. In order to turn a Pesach into a shlamim throughout the year, you have to uproot it from its Pesach. But by default, if you just leave it alone as a stomach, it remains Pesach. Is that so? You have to be accurate? Says, well, not necessarily. Omar Rabbi Bar Gamda Nizruka mipi chabura. There was a chabura, and from then we heard this statement, meaning the entire group agreed to frame the Mishnah in the following scenario. Va'amru, they said like this. Although perhaps generally, a Korban Pesach outside of a Zman is by default considered a Shlamim and not a Pesach. You don't need Akira. But our Mishnah, which requires Akira, and says that if you take this Korban Pesach on Chol Hamoed, and your Makravit Stama, it remains Pesach. But if you did Shaloi L'Shmoi, only then does the Akira uproot the status and changes it to a Shlamim. You know what we're speaking about? A unique case. Kigoin, Shayu Balim Tamei Meis. For instance, if the owner of this carbon was a Tamei Meis, V'nitchan Pesach Sheni, and he was pushed off to Pesach Sheni, in which case he still can use, he still has the possibility of using his carbon as a carbon Pesach. The Stam L'Shon Pesach Koi. The Stam, the presumption of this carbon is that it's going to be used as a Pesach. So in this case, unless he actually is accurate and says, no, I'm doing this for a Shlamim, it's considered a Pesach, and therefore the Mishnah says, or at least we have a diak from the Mishnah, that if it would be a shchita stam, it would be potter for doing it with chametz because it's a Pesach being brought on Chol Hamoed, in which case it's possible. Continues the Gemara. Pesach nishchat b'sholish kiddush. Now we're going to describe the process of the shchita, the zrika, etc. of the Korban Pesach. Says the Mishnah, you meant to know that the shchita of the Korban Pesach was meant to take place specifically b'sholish kiddush, with 3 groups of Yisraelim. It was done in 3 shifts. Shanama v'shocht oisoi, kol kahal, adas Yisrael. There are 3 terms of groups, of multitudes. Kahal, ve'eda, v'Yisrael. Let's take a look at Rashi, which is about 10 lines from where we're holding. Rashi begins Masnissen. HaPesach nishchal b'sholish kitais. Pischei tzibur. Bein sha tzibur mu'atin. So Rashi, the chiddush here is if you have a small crowd, then you can fit them all into one shift. No, you meant to split into 3. Ben shatzibim mu'atim v'yichoyin l'shachet kul masachas. You can do it all at once. Mitzvah l'cholek l'shalosh kiddush zachazu. It's a mitzvah to have 3 groups, one after the other. And we learn this from the pasuk. V'shachto oisei kol kahal adas Yisrael. You need kol, then eda, then Yisrael. Continues the Mishnah. Nichnas l'kas rishoyna. The first group went into the Azara, the small Azara, filled up from Israel and bringing their Korban Pesach. No, Dalsas Azara. Then they closed off. They closed up the doors of the Azara. Toko Iriu Toko the Kahanim did Atkiya, Atru and Atkiya. HaKahanim Oimdim Shurei Shureis. Now, how were the Kahanim positioned? They had rows. They were lined up in rows. Shurais. Ubideim baziche kesef baziche zav. The Kohanim were holding these large spoons, these containers, some silver, some gold, which was meant to contain the dam, and then would be transferred to the Mizbeach for the Zrik. Shur shekula kesef kesef. The rows were designed as follows. We had one complete row of silver. They would hold only silver vessels. V'shur shekula zav zav. And the other row was completely for gold. And they wouldn't mix and match. The Gemara says it was for niceness. These bezichim would not have any flat bottoms. Shema yanicham. There's a concern due to the sheer numbers here. There's so many karbanos Pesach. Perhaps the Kohanim would try to get a bunch at once, do the zrik on a bunch, the kabbalah on a whole bunch, and perhaps that would cause a delay in the zrika. They would have to put some down. And in the meantime, because Hadam, the dam would congeal and it would become unfit for zrika. Therefore, they made these pointy bottoms. This would prevent this possibility. Shachad Yisrael the Kibal Kohen, so the Yisrael would do the shchita on the carbon if he wished to do so. The Kibal Kohen, but when it comes to Kabbalah and onward, the Kohen would have to do it. Noisne lechaver, so we said the Kohanim were all lined up. The Kohen who did the Kabbalah of the dam straight from the carbon, from the behemah, would pass the container lachaver to the Kohen standing beside him, v'chaver, and that Kohen would pass it on, umekabel es hamole, umachsas harek. They created this conveyor belt system, where the Kohen would receive the container full of dam, assumingly with his right hand, from the Kohen next to him, pass it over to the Kohen to his left, umachsas harek, then he would grab hold of the empty container and pass it over to his right. So it was a system, an efficient system. This way, the containers would be passed on from Kohen to Kohen, and the empty ones would make their way back to the beginning of the row, which was near the Yisrael doing a shchita, and so on and so forth. This is the way they proceeded with Kabbalah, Haylach and Zrik. Kohen HaKorbet Tzimazbeach. So they would pass the container full of dam all the way to the last Kohen, who is positioned right near the Mizbeach. Zorka Zrika Achaz Keneged Yisoid. He would do a Zrika, he would throw the dam on the Mizbeach, on that wall, which was situated directly above the Yisoid, the base of the Mizbeach. Rashi explains that the Yisoid would not surround the entire Mizbeach. It was only to be found on two sides, on Safain and Marav. So you must make sure that the Zrika on the walls of the Mizbeach happens to be a wall which is situated directly above the Yisoid. So we have a description of the Shchita, the Kabbalah, the Hilach, and the Zrik. Yotzis Hakas Rishayna. So the first shift completed their process, and they left the Azora with their animals. V'nichs Hakas Shniya. Now the second group entered, and the same thing happened all over again. Yotzis Shniya, the second group came out. Nichas Hashlishis, and the third shift entered. Kamasa Rishayna, the same process which was applied by the first group. Chachmasa Hashniya V'Ashlishi, the same thing happened during the second and the third shifts. Koru es hallel. This explains, is referring to Levium. They would read hallel while the Shchitas HaPesach was proceeding. Im Gomru Shanu. If they happened to complete the entire hallel and they were still involved in the Shchita, Shanu, they would repeat the hallel again. Vim Shanu. If they repeated and still there were still some Pesachim waiting to be processed, Shilshu, they would actually read it a third time until the entire shift completed their Karbonis Pesach. You meant to know that this never actually happened, because there were so many Kohanim there, and they were working at breakneck speed. They never actually got to repeating the Hallel 3 times. It was completed before they got to that point. The Shchitas HaPesach, that is. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mimeim shel Kashlishis. Throughout all the days of the third group, the Levim never even got up to the capital of Ahavti, which was, I believe, the 4th capital in Hallel. Never got to that point. But because the number of people participating in the third kat were very small. It was a very low number in the shift, because generally people attempted to be part of the first or second at least, because of Zriza Magdiman. This was just the group of the latecomers, and due to the fact that there was such a small group, they were complete and finished even before they got to V'ahavta Kishma Hashem. Continues the Mishnah, the same process that applies during the weekday, the same thing happened during Shabbos. We want to know that the Korban Pesach, with all its processes, were allowed to be done if Erev Pesach fell out on Shabbos, because it's Doicha Shabbos. Except for one thing which was problematic. They chose to rinse off the floor of the Azara, without the consent of the Chachamim. Rashi explains that they would take the stream, the Amas Hamayim, which ran through the Azara, and they would plug up the end, the outlet, in which case the stream would fill up and overflow, which was used to rinse off the floor of the Azara from the dam of the Karbonis, but this was not done by Tzon Chacham. The Gemara explained why. Rabbi Yehuda, another thing that they would do is kais hayimamali medamat hareis. The kohen would take a kais and fill it with dam that he would find throughout the floor of the Azara. This mixture of dam. Why? Just in case one of the Karbonis Pesach's dam got spilled out, this would account for that and be masha that carbon. Zorka zrika achas al gam mizbeach. He would do one zrika on the mizbeach, but to masha that carbon whose dam perhaps was spilled out. Chacham didn't agree to this process, and the Gemara will explain. So we completed the shchita, the Kabbalah, the halach, and the zrika. Keitzad toilet mafshita. How would they suspend the Korban Pesach in order to remove its skin? Unklish shel barzel. There were these metal hooks, hayu kvun b'ksolom ubamudim, which were positioned in the walls and these poles. You had all these rods protruding, shebehen toilet mafshitin, and they would use them to hang the Korban Pesach in order to remove its skin. What if a fellow couldn't find himself a spot, couldn't find an available hook to be toilet mafshit? What would he do? Maklis dakim v'chalokim hayusham. They had a backup supply of these thin rods. V'chalokim, they were smooth, they were peeled from their bark, and they would use those rods. Maniach al ksefay al kesef chaver. They would make this makeshift platform. They would take a rod and position it going from his shoulder, aksefay, put it on his shoulder, al kesef chaver, and over onto his friend's shoulder, and would use that v'toil mafshit, hang his Korban Pesach on it, and be mafshit the hide. Rabbi Lezer Omer Yudalik shechalias v'Shabbos. What happens if Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, in which case Rashi says the sticks cannot be prepared, perhaps they're muktzah. Maniach yodai al kesef chaver. Then we really have a makeshift arrangement. He puts his hands on his friend's shoulder, Yad chaver al kseifa, and his friend does likewise, puts his hand on the first man's shoulder, v'toil mafshit, and he hangs, and his mafshit is Korban Pesach, hanging it on the arms. Koroi, he tore the Korban Pesach open, v'hoitzias imurav, and took out the imurim, the chalavim, etc., which was meant to go on the mizbeach and the son of a maggis. He placed it in this pail, and a viktirim gam mizbeach, and was maked on the mizbeach. Concludes the Mishnah, and we're going back to Erev Pesach, which happens to be Shabbos. So the shchita, etc., is Doicha Shabbos, but they couldn't take it home. Perhaps it was muktzah, perhaps we're speaking about the Isavaytzah. They had to remain within the premises of the Beis HaMikdash, Yotzasa Kas Rishoina. So when the first group finished their Korban Pesach, they took their carbon with them, and they went out, V'yashvela b'Harabayis, and positioned themselves in their waiting area, in the Harabayis. Shniya b'Chel, the second group, when they completed, they went out to the Chel. Chel was a place between the actual Beis HaMikdash structure and this mechitza, which went around the Beis HaMikdash structure called a surig. Surig was made of konim, some type of lattice. So between the Beis HaMikdash building and this surig was an area called Chel, where the second group would go out and camp out until nighttime. Bashlishis, the third group, could just remain in place. They had nobody coming behind them. They just remained in place in the Azara. Chashecha, once it got dark, Yotzu b'tzolis b'schein, all the groups went out, took their Korban Pesach with them, and roasted it, because it was Matzah Shabbos. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Ein Pesach nishchat el begimel kittis. Shal shloishim bnei adam. Mishnah began by telling us that we're meant to do the Korban Pesach with 3 groups, 3 shifts must be involved. Says Rabbi Yitzchak, how large is each shift? Ein Pesach nishchat el begimel kittis. Is to have 3 shifts. Shal shloishim bnei adam, with each kat being 30 people. My time, kol ve'eda v'Yisrael. That's the pasuk which teaches us the 3 shifts. V'shachtu oisoi kol kahal adas Yisrael. As Rashi explains, each term, each one of these 3, kahal, eda, Yisrael, is referring to 10 people. So that we know. We need 3 times 10. However, is it all at once or b'zeh mesapklan? We have a suffix ibe bas achas. Does Torah mean that you meant to take 3 groups of 10 each all together and make one shift of 30 people, ibe bas achas, ibe zeh, or perhaps it's successively, meaning one shift 10, the next shift another 10, and the third shift another 10. Hilkach, in order to cover all possibilities, Hilkach, that's why be'inan shalosh kitais, shal shloishim bnei adam, that is why we need 3 groups, each one consisting of 30 people. This way we cover all bases. This way, if the Torah really meant that we should have 30 at once, we have 30 at once. And if the Torah meant that it should be 10, 10, and 10, in this case we should only have it. It's 30, 30, and 30. Let's take a look at Rashi. 4 lines from the top. This is Rashi Gemara. So Rebbe tells us you have to have shloishim b'chol kat v'kat. Each group has to consist of 30. Kol asora, ve'eda asora, v'Yisrael asora. So each one is 10 people. Mashal explains that Eda, the Gemara elsewhere learns to be referring to 10 because he bodlam b'toicha Eda hazoyis, that's the meraglim. Take away the 2 tzadikim, Kalev and Yeshua, we're left with 10. So Eda is 10. Yisrael, the Gemara learns with Zeu Shava, Yisrael, that Yisrael, just like Eda is 10, Yisrael is 10. What about Kol? Says the Maharsha. The Gemara assumes it's a svara, since the Torah listed all these 3 references together. Kol together with Eda and Yisrael, and Eda and Yisrael mean 10. So Kol as well is likely referring to 10. Continues Rashi. But we still have a suffix, mesapkale. Dilma v'vasachas tziva l'shoichtoi. The Torah means we should have all 3 aspects at once. Kol and Eda Yisrael for a total of 30. Or perhaps does it mean you want to have 3 groups, one after the other, each one consisting of 10. So in order to cover all possibilities, Hilkach shalosh kitas b'inin, we have to have 3 groups. Perhaps the Torah means how many Yisraelim in each group? And we need each group to have 30 people. Why? Perhaps Dilma b'vasachas kamer. Torah meant 30 at once. We can't have less than 30. Fine. Continues the Gemara. But you don't really have to have 90 fresh people here. 30 people and another 30 and another 30. Hilkach, says the Gemara in the first white line, Hilkach b'chamshe nami sage. 50 is enough. Why? The Eilit Lassen, Vavti. The first 30 go in and do their Korban Pesach. This way, if the Torah meant 30 at once, you have it. V'avdi, and they make the Korban. Eili Asar. Now, for the second shift, you have 10 fresh people who never brought their Korban. Eili Asar, v'nafki Asar. And they make an exchange. 10 new people come in, and 10 of the previous leave. So now you have a group of 10 people that are bringing the Korban Pesach. So if the Torah meant a group of 10, then another group of 10, another group of 10, you're okay. So the Torah meant to have 30 at once. Still have 30 at once. You have a total of 30 standing here. You have 10 people doing the Korban and 20 observers. And the same thing with the third group. Eili Asara, v'nafki Asara. You have 10 new people coming, and in exchange, 10 people leave. Now, as the Meiri points out, although if you need to have 30 at once, why is it enough to have 10 new people and 20 observers? How can you recycle the same people? So Meiri says apparently you need to have 10 fresh people in order to give the appearance of a new group. Observers are enough to complete the shir of 30. But you need 10 fresh people. This way it looks like a brand new group. It's a new cut. And for that you have to have 10 people. This way, says the Gemara, 50 really is enough. Because you'll have 30 in each group. But you don't need 30 times 3. You don't need 90 people altogether. You begin with 30. And then the second group will have 10 new people. And 20 of the first group will remain to observe it. So you have 30 altogether. And the same thing the third time around. This way, if the Torah meant 30 at once, so it's 30 at once. Torah meant 3 separate shifts, each one having 10 people. So you have it as well. But the point is that the minimum being involved in the carbon in each shift needs to be 10. 10 new people. That's why you have to have 50. You have to have 10 fresh people each time. But you don't have to have 90 in order to get all the bases covered. Continues the Gemara. Nichnas sakas rishayna. First shift went in, and then they closed the doors. But machlek is how that happened. Itmar. Abaye Omar ninalu tnan. It's ninalu that we learned in the Mishnah. It happened on its own. Automatic doors. It was a nice. Nobody actually closed those doors. Rav Amar noyalin tnan. Who meant to learn noyalin? Somebody actually manually closed those doors. My benai, what is the base of their machlekes? What's the point of contention? Iki benai, the machlekes like this. Lemis machanisa. Are we meant to be soymech on ananes? The doors would close on their own. But are we meant to be reliant on that? Abayir Omar ninalu tnan. Yeah. They closed on their own. Kama de ailumal. As many as went in and fit in, that's fine. And then suddenly when the doors would close, it would close. V'samchin anisa, we relied on this. Rav Omar noilan tnan. No. They meant to close it. V'lei samchin anisa. We don't rely on a nes. Now, what's the nes that we're relying on? Let's see Rashi. So Rashi would be around 6 lines from where we're holding in the Gemara. Rashi begins with nin alin tnan. Ni alin, it happened on its own. Umasa nis. And according to Abai, we're samich on nes. Well, what nes? Samchin anis. The kolzman she'ein nol malein. As long as these doors remained open, we allow the crowd to come in. What's the chiddush? We're not concerned. We're meant to have three groups, right? But we're not concerned that perhaps everybody will come in and not leave enough outside for the second and third groups. Perhaps everybody will enter, which will leave us without enough supply for 3 groups. Abaye says, not to worry. Rely on the nes. Let as many as want come in and have the doors closed on their own. Rest assured that everything will work out fine. Continues the Gemara. V'hodesnan. How do we understand the following Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda, Chas v'sholem sha'akavya ben ma'alal nesnada. Rashi explains that akavya ben ma'alal etana was put into nidui cherem for speaking disrespectfully in reference to Shmai v'Avtalion, and that's why they put him in. They applied nidui. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with that account of events. He says, Chas v'sholem, how could he say that? He was such a great man. Nidui, impossible. Chas v'sholem sha'akavya ben ma'alal nesnada. You can't say that. Why? He was the greatest man around. Shein Azor and Ellis. Al Kol Adam B'Yisrael. When the doors of the Azor would close up for Yisrael, who came in to do the Korban Pesach, there was nobody greater in that group that was being locked in, closed in by those doors. B'Chochma u'B'Yerschet. In Madrega of Chochma and Yerschet, Ka'akavya b'Ma'alal. He was the greatest one to be found in that Azor. How could you even contemplate that he was put into chir? Okay, so what pertains to us is that the Mishnah here makes a reference to Azhar and Ellis. What does that mean? Manually or automatically? Abaye Mataras Tamei. Abaye will interpret according to his pshat. Rava Mataras Tamei, and Rava according to his shit. Abaye Mataras Tamei. The Mishnah is meant to be learned like this. Ein ba'azor b'shah shenin ola akodim Yisrael b'chachom b'yaschet. There was nobody found in this Azor when it was closed. And Ola means it was automatically closed. Not manually, automatically. Nobody greater in Chachma and Yoschet Kavi B'Malal. So according to Abaye, it was a nice. Rava Matasa Tamei. Rava will read the Mishnah according to his pshat. Ein Ba'azora. B'shah She'noyalin Oisa Akol Yisrael. B'Chachma B'Yoschet Kavi B'Malal. There's nobody greater in that Azora. When they would close those doors to contain the Israel, there's nobody present greater in Chachma and Yoschet as a Kavi B'Malal. So it's consistent with their shittas. Abaye says they had automatic doors. Rava says it was closed by hand. Despite the fact that there was such a large crowd and a very active crowd in the Azara, nobody ever got trampled. Except for one time. One carbon Pesach on days of Hillel. There was this elderly man who got trampled upon. Pesach result would refer to that year's Korban Pesach as a Pesach Mu'uchen. Mu'uchen is trampled on account of that event. Ton Rabbanan Pam Achas Bikesh Agrippas HaMelech. So Agrippas was a descendant of Hordus, was not really Roy to be a Melech, although his mother was Jewish, but his father wasn't. And in any case, he wanted to figure out the number of his subjects in his kingdom. Pamachas bikesh Agrippas HaMelech liten enov bu'chlusa Yisrael. He wanted to take a look and figure out the numbers of Yisrael under his control. Amalei l'kain gadol. So he turned to the kain gadol and he said, "Tein einecha Pesachim." Take a look at the numbers of the Korban Pesach. Perhaps through that we can get an idea of the total number of Klal Yisrael. Not al kulyim kol echad. So the Kohen Gadol took one kidney from each carbon, and how many were found? V'nimtzu sham shishim ribu. Ribu is 10,000. So shishim ribu, 60 times 10,000, 600,000. Zugei kleis. They found 600,000 pairs of kidneys. So it's a total of 1,200,000. Kiflaim keitzim Mitzrayim, double the number of the Israelim leaving Mitzrayim, which was only 600,000. Here was 1,200,000. Now that's only the Korban Pesach Rishon. Chutz. Plus you have to take into account the Pesach Shenis. Mitame, the carbon brought by the Tame, Pesach Sheni, which the this fellow who was far away, and would only bring the Pesach Sheni. Now we're not done. Each carbon Pesach had a group of people who were associated with it. You didn't have a single Pesach, who didn't have more than 10 people as members on that Pesach. So if you have 1,200,000 carbonates, you have at least 12 million people here. So there was a very large crowd that year. And as a result, they refer to that Korban Pesach of that year, Pesach Mu'uven is thick, large crowd, large numbers. Says the Gemara, but how could he take the kidney away? Not al kulya? That needs to be brought to Mizbeach. The Hada Maktalu, afterwards he was Maktared. That's not enough. You want to be Maktar each carbon's emurin, the chalev and the klois of each carbon separately. You can't just mix them all together. Shali Arav chalav shezebezeh. You don't have to mix the chalav of one carbon with the other. So he had a pile of kidneys and you just makter it together. You can't do that. The Hada Maktalu Chada Chada. Certainly he went ahead and was makter each one separately. He didn't mix them up together. Says him about Tanya, but we learned Viktiram Sheikulik Echad. That when he's makter the chalev and the klois, it's meant to be a package deal, a bundle, all the emurin together. How could he separate the kidney from the other emurin of this carbon, the fats, etc., and then makter it separately? It's meant to go together as a group. Elo says rather Tfisa Ba'alma T'Shakim Minai. It was only a temporary thing. Kangal grabbed the kulya, the kidney, for just a small moment. Until in exchange they gave him something else, a pebble or something like else, which he would use for an indication of the number. He wouldn't actually hold on to the klaya for keeps. Just grab it for a moment until he got some type of other item to be used as a number indicator. So of course he gave it right back, and it was put together with the other emurin, which were mukta together. So So Mishnah told us that the Kahana were lined up, and each row was different than the other. This row would involve themselves in gold bazichen. The other one would pass around silver containers. They wouldn't mix the gold and the silver. My time, what would be the reason for this? Ilema is the reason, perhaps. We know that there is a halacha called Malin B'Kodesh Ve'en Moridin. Meant to rise up, upgrade in matters of Kedusha, matters of Akrava, matters of mitzvahs, and not downgrade. So perhaps that's the basis of this halacha. Ilema Dilma, perhaps the concern is Shakli, Dilma Shakli de Dahava, Ayla de Kaspa. Perhaps a kohen would receive an empty gold kli and pass back a full silver one. Right? They had the kohen lined up as a conveyor belt system, and they would pass the empty one back and receive the full one, and so on and so forth. So perhaps the kohen would receive an empty gold one, which was chashav, it's gold, and he would happen to have only a silver one on hand, a silver one full of dam, and pass that back. So he's actually downgrading from gold to silver. So is that the reason why they would keep it strictly gold in this row, strictly silver in the other row? Hachanami. But here as well, even if you have completely gold, you have different value in gold. You have a kli which is worth more than the other. So why are we concerned about downgrading? Dilma shakli by masan. Perhaps they'll take an empty one which is expensive, worth 200, and then pass back only a kli worth 100. So they're both gold, but they have different value. Rather, that's not the concern. The concern is simply for aesthetic reasons. They look nicer having it all gold and having a line of all silver. It says the bezichen do not have flat bottoms. Tana Rabbanon kol bezichen shebemikdash. Lo yehoyel and shalayim, all the bezichen the mikdash do not have flat bottoms, except for one thing. Chutz v'bezichen lavoina, except for the spoons which would contain the lavoina shalachem apanim, which was placed right next to the lechem apanim on that shulchan. Why would they have flat bottoms? Because if their bottoms were pointed, then how do we get the bezichim to stand? Shema Yenichem is concerned that he might lean it, support it with the lechem apanim, the yifras halechem, and the lechem will break apart. So in order to avoid that concern, those bezichim specifically were made with flat bottoms. This way they would be self-supportive. Shachar Yisrael l'kibul hakohen. The Mishnah tells us that the kohen did the shchit, the Yisrael did the shchit, and the kohen the kabbalah. Loisagya, is it not enough? The lav Yisrael, that's not a Yisrael, meaning does it have to be Yisrael? Why does it have to be a Yisrael doing the shchita? He gave a kamashmalan. The Mishnah is simply telling us the halacha. The shchita bezark shira. If the Yisrael chooses to do the shchita, he can do so because a zar can do shchita. It's not a requirement. It's optional. If he wants, he can do it. V'kibel hakohen, the Mishnah continues, V'kibel hakohen, kamashmalan. We learn from here, mikabbalah ve'elach mitzvahs kuhuna. Although the shchita, a Yisrael can do, but from Kabbalah onward is strictly a kohen job. Noislan chaveroi, Mishnah tells us that the kohen holding the full kli of dam would pass it on to the kohen standing beside him. Shamis not, we learn from here, halacha shalei beregel, habi halacha. In effect, what they were doing is a avoid of halacha. Transporting the dam to the mizbech is halacha. Nobody was actually walking. It was just being passed from one hand to the other. Is that so that halacha can be done without walking? This is more not necessarily. Dilma perhaps, who nayit purta, he would move his feet a bit in the direction of the mizbech, and that would be sufficient to provide halacha. And indeed, halacha needs to be beregel. If that's the case, then what's the point of the Mishnah? Meaning, what's the Mishnah coming to teach us? They were lined up. In fact, why would they have to actually do this? Perhaps there should be one kohen doing halacha per carbon. Could we even took longer doing it this way? You have to go take it and pass it on, and so on and so forth. What was the point of so many kohanim being involved in this carbon? And as Rashi says, why does the Mishnah have to get into this? Describe exactly how they stood and how they passed. Hakamashwan, the chiddush here is B'roivam hadras melech, the multitude, the ribuy am, the increased oilam here. The fact that there were so many people involved in one carbon, a hadras melech that serves to provide hadar and cover to the king. Look, everybody is eager to be involved in the mitzvah. So rather than just one kohen taking care of each carbon, so many wanted to be involved in every carbon. And that's why the Mishnah describes it in this manner to teach us this concept. So first, he was makabel the mole. So you have a kohen right in the middle of the row here. He has a kohen to his right, a kohen to his left. The Mishnah says, kibul esamole. So presumably it's his right hand, which he uses to be makabel the mole, the container full of dam from the kohen to his right. And he passes that over to the kohen to his left. And then he brings back the empty one. He receives the empty one and passes it to his right. But he wouldn't do it in the reverse. First he would be involved in the actual dam and then pass back the empty one. This is the right to Shema Lakish. When a person has a mitzvah presenting itself in front of him, he's not meant to sidestep it and ignore it. So here he has a kli full of dam available for passing on. He's meant to engage with that first and then pass back the empty one. The kohen situated right near the mizbech, he would do the zrika. He would throw the dam on the wall of the mizbech, rather than shficha, which Rashi describes as just pouring gently. Zrika and not shficha. Who is this shita? Mantana. Who is the shita that holds that Pesach bezrika? This process is applied to the current Pesach. Rav Chizda, Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. We have a pasuk describing the avodah of the bechor, which is really just one single carbon. Rather than describing it as a single carbon, what does the pasuk say? As domam tizrik al mizbeach. Their dam should be zerk. Ves chelbam takter. Domay nemar. Rather than saying damai, singular, what does it say? El damam, lashon rabim. What is it referring to here? Chelbam nemar. It doesn't say chelboy yishvi makter, the bechor. El chelbam, rather lashon rabim. It's coming to include other karbanos as well, who have the same requirements. Limeid al bechor, u'maser pesach. All three of them have the same halacha shein tu'unin. They all three required matan damim, ve'imurn gam mizbech, to have the application of their dam and the imurn burnt on the mizbech. Minolan the tu'unin yisoid. So Mishnah tells us that it has to be directly above the yisoid of the mizbech. How do we know that? Amar B'Lazar asya zrika zrika mi'olah. We derive this using a gzeir shava zrika zrika from oila. In which case we know that it needs yisoid. And same thing here. What's the gzeir shava? Ksiv hacha. Over here it says as damam tizrik al mizbech. Uksiv hasan by oila it says v'zorka b'nei arna kehanim as damay al mizbech saviv. So we connect the two zrikas and we say like this: Ma oila tuni yisoid, just as the carbon oila. Its zrika needs to take place where? On the wall of the mizbech, which is directly over the yisoid. Af Pesach nami tuni yisoid. The same thing with Pesach. The zrika needs to be by the yisoid. V'oila gufa minol. Well, how do we know that oila needs yisoid? On Makro, we have another pasuk, which is actually by chatas. You meant to take the dam of the chatas, apply it to the mizbeach, and the leftovers, the remnants, you meant to be shoifech, el yisoid, mizbach oila. Now, what's the point of mentioning oila? We're speaking about chatas. The Torah is coming to teach us something. Alma, apparently, oila tuna yisoid, that the zrika by the oila needs to be related to the yisoid. So once we know that oila needs yisoid, we draw that over to chatas, to Bchor, Maser, and Pesach, to teach us that the zrika by those korbanos as well took place on the side of the mizbeach, which was over the yisoid. So let's make a quick chazara of today's daf. We began with a reference again to the halacha of l'sishchat al chametz dam zivchi, which teaches us that the korban Pesach is meant to be completely free of chametz. So the person involved, the kohen, the sheikha, the zorik, or even echad b'nei chabura, not meant to own any chametz while the process of the akrova is taking place. According to Tanakama, applies only to the korban Pesach. According to Rabbi Yehuda, even to the korban tamid, sheben harbayim on erev Pesach. According to Rabbi Shimon, applies to other korbanos as well. Well, on erev Pesach only to the korban Pesach, but throughout Yom Tov Pesach applies to other korbanos as well, provided that the shchita was a shchita kshir. We proceeded with the Mishnah, which describes in great length and detail the process involved in the Kravas of the Karban Pesach. We have the three kitos, those three groups, they call the Edi Yisrael. We have the groups, the rows of Kahanim, exclusively gold, exclusively silver. We have the Hallel recited by the Levim during the Shechita of the Karban Pesach. We have the description of how they would toil and mafshit the Karban Pesach. We have a machlekes in the Gemara, whether or not they actually manually closed those doors. Abaye says it happened on its own. Rava says no, they actually did it. We have the story of the Pesach Mu'uchen, the trampled Karban Pesach. We have the Pesach Mu'uvin, which had a huge number of participants. We have the concept of Beroiv HaMadras Melech. That's why so many Kahanim will be involved in passing the dam from the Behemoth to the Mizbeach. We have the Chiddush that the Zrika, the Shechita takes place even through a Yisrael, whereas the Kabbalah and going forward would only be kasha through a Kohen. And we learned that the Tanav al-Mishnah, Rabbi Saglili, holds that the Zrika was the proper process applied to the dam of the Karban Pesach. Be well, all the best, and Atzlacha Rabbah.